Hi, welcome everyone to She Became Visible. I'm René Steelman. I'm your host. And today I have two fellow podcasters that are going to be, we're all going to be chatting, which is way more fun than just one. I think there's a song. Isn't there a song? More fun than one? I don't know. Sounds familiar anyway. We've got Tricia back. Tricia is my full-time teacher in Washington State who's got a crazy life. And we're going to be introducing Liz Porter to you. Many of you maybe have met her if you are on Facebook or if you are on Liz, what forum do you post on the most?
Probably Facebook.
Okay. And do you get into like ex-Mormon discussions, Mormon stories discussions? Who do you follow that you end up responding to the most?
I've kind of gotten out of that actually.
Okay, great.
I feel like I'm at a place where I have all of the knowledge to keep me safe and comfortable.
Right.
I'm gonna be looking into what you're doing more. I think voices for women are definitely important.
Right.
And that's something that, like you and I talked about, it hasn't really been addressed anywhere.
Exactly.
And we matter.
Right. Yeah. And Tricia and I talked about that, didn't we, Tricia? That there's a lot of male voices out there, which I love. I mean, predominantly, I would have to say 90% of the podcasts that I listen to are male hosted.
Yeah.
And I do love that. And what I really like is, I feel like female voices have a tendency to equalize everything out a little bit. There's the appropriate amount of anger, but there's the appropriate amount of understanding and okay, let's make this better,
Knowledge. We have so much knowledge to attribute.
Yeah. And you guys, if you're not following Brittany Hartley, Brittany and Bill Reel are doing The Awakening. Britt posted something on Facebook the other day that I copied and made it into a reel. And I got to contact her and figure out how I can steal her audio to use to broadcast in other places. And I also want to go back and listen to what her source was. But she made the most profound comment. And it was about how we're told that in order to find spirituality, you have to read the scriptures, you have to be praying, you have to be studying the scriptures and this kind of thing. But she said one of the forms of patriarchy is telling women that they can't find spirituality in nurturing and taking care of their children, taking care of the home, that we don't have to be sitting in a lotus pose. And as she was talking, I was thinking of the movie Yentl, of how this woman wanted to study the scriptures, but she was pushed away and said, no, go home, go cook, go do womanly things, because the men are going to gather together and study the scriptures, and then they'll let you know. But when she said that, it was like, yes, we don't have time to study because we've got babies that we're taking care of and adult children that are going through crisis and things that women do, whatever it is, we've got things that women are doing. And we can come closer to a spiritualness, whether it's in a God or whether it's in Mother in heaven, whether it's in nature, through taking our children on a hike is a spiritual adventure for women.
You know what I find interesting about that is that, ironically, we're told as the parents, the mothers, that we're supposed to be teaching our kids the scriptures and all of those things. But exactly what you're saying is true. We don't have time. Like how are we supposed to actually dig into these things with our kids and running around? And so everything stays surface level,
Exactly.
And so I love that idea of, do we need those scriptures to feel that spirituality? If we were connecting with our kids on that deeper level, instead of worrying about all those little things that we're supposed to be doing, maybe we'd find that spirituality. So I love that idea.
Right. And Liz, just for a little bit, share what you're going through right now with your mom. She was just diagnosed with cancer. Is that correct?
Yeah, breast cancer. She is going into the Huntsman Center on Tuesday to have a lumpectomy.
Okay.
It looks, I mean, when we're talking about cancer, I think it looks as good as it can be. She's 83 years old. Mm-hmm. I'm just grateful they agreed to take it out.
Yeah, seriously. Normally, yeah, sometimes at that age, they have a tendency just to go, oh, you're good, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah. And so, I mean, it's funny because they'll stand up, men, I'm talking about patriarchy. They'll stand up and they'll say, women, these are your roles. Men, these are your roles. And they give you that role and they put you on a fake pedestal for that role. Mm-hmm. But then when it comes to like someone, I've heard this 3 or 4 times, but someone once again put it on TikTok. It's that little clip from Russell Nelson at a priesthood session. It must have been back in the 90s because he was quite a bit younger. But he was saying, you know, I'm here with my sons, my son-in-laws, my grandsons. Where are their mothers, you ask? Where are their daughters? Well, they're home. And he literally says, they're home in the kitchen. They're making us homemade donuts so that when we return, they will ask us, what did you learn? And we will teach them. I mean, when I hear that, I'm like, I'm so glad we didn't get to go to priesthood sessions back then because, or maybe not, maybe I should have gone because that would have been my shelf breaker back in 1995, you know? But that's the mentality, thinking that because we're home with our sisters and our moms and our aunts, and we're making donuts.
Cooking.
Yes, that we're not getting spiritually fed, you know? And I thought, you know why there are more percentage-wise, more women in Christian, you know, religions, including the LDS Church, is because we find Jesus spirituality in making donuts. You know, we find spiritual, we connect with a higher power, whatever that is, going with our mothers to the Huntsman Center.
Yeah.
We find a connection, serving and nurturing. And even though we're applauded for that, it's kind of a condescending, yeah, but you don't know the scriptures. You can't rattle off, you know, Alma 3, 4 through 9, you know. And I'm like, I can't. But you also don't know how to change a diaper. What the crap are you doing? You know? So, I mean, it's like, it's a little bit, I don't know. I'm kind of probably being, you know, a matriarchal thing right now. But anyway, so Liz, tell Trish, and Trish, feel free to jump in. What was the catalyst that sparked your historical truth where you started looking into, because you're, like I said, your posts on Facebook are, did you know this, and you'll go through a historical, you know, information.
Yes.
What was the catalyst that sparked that?
Okay. Well, I would say that in the home I grew up in, we had a room that we called the library. It was a larger room in the upstairs of the house, lined with bookshelves. My mother kept a plethora of books. We were all taught to read before we started school. And I remember being taught by my mother about Joseph Smith being married to younger women and Brigham Young. And I remember reading, and this is not going to be verbatim, but some of the things that Heber C. Kimball had said, like, I remember being very impacted at probably the age of 12 by reading, you know, Save Some of the Pretty Girls for Us.
Yeah, Heber C. Kimball's, yeah.
But I also, my home was also LDS, and whenever I discussed these things with my mother, she would always say, oh, we're always going to have our free agency. Whatever these dumb men say, you know, we're still going to have our free agency. My mom still believes that today, and she's been a LDS woman, gone to the temple and done all the things that she should all of her life, but she doesn't believe what the patriarchal society that we live in. She's never believed what they tell her. She has her own. I'm like, Mom, you're just like me, but you go to church.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that? Because when I first started to really like not tolerate the verbiage that that you have in the temple. When I first started to be like, I can't listen to this anymore. I said to my mom, who's a temple worker, who is a very strong, I mean, she divorced my father in a small town where he was, in a small town. He was like
a big fish in a small town.
I mean, he wasn't in political yet, but he was on his way to running for mayor. But everybody knew who he was. He was really active in the Eagles, and they got together every weekend at the Eagles for whatever was going on. Everybody knew him, Yeah. But she just wasn't going to tolerate it anymore. So she was strong enough to get out of that marriage, take her 2 kids, and move into an apartment. I remember in the 70s, I remember her wearing pants to church, when pantsuits. You guys don't remember this, but polyester pantsuits first became popular, and way before Hillary Clinton. And she wore them to church. And of course, she was like, "Oh, Sister Cathcart, you can't wear those." And she's like, "Why? What difference does it make?" So I thought of her as a strong woman. I saw her stand up to the Sunday school president when she was in the Sunday school, whatever they let women do back in the 70s. And I saw her complain about home teaching and how these guys would come over and take up our time, but they didn't have anything to, So I thought, okay, this is a free thinking. This is where I get it, unfortunately. But I said to her, "Mom, I can't handle this anymore." I said, "I'm not gonna lean over lovingly with dove eyes and stare into my husband and go, 'Okay, honey, I won't talk to God anymore. You tell me what to say, and then you tell me what God wants me to do, and I'll do it.'" And she said, "Oh, honey, but it's only if they follow God." It's like, we followed him if he followed God. And I'm like, yeah, you think that's what they hear? You think that's what they hear? That's not what they hear.
That's how I rationalized it. That's exactly what I did the first time I heard it. And I was like, I guess that's fine as long as they're listening to God. That's how I rationalized it.
Yeah. And when you have a good husband who isn't king of the hill, it is easy to do that. It's the poor women that are being told to shut up and sit down that are like, okay,
because let's think about it. Who gets to decide if he's listening to God?
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Liz, I don't remember. What did you tell me your relationship situation is right now? Are you married?
I'm married. We've been married for 32 years. Okay. My husband, when we met, was a little wayward in regard to Mormonism. And his mother was just so, pleased to meet me because here comes Molly Mormon.
Okay. And straighten this guy out.
Yes. And he quits drinking and he quits chewing Copenhagen. And, we do all this work to become worthy to go through the temple. And we're married in the temple. And, everything's just so wonderful and fabulous. And we're doing all the things that we're supposed to. Throughout our lives, though, I had this my husband's name is Stacy. I always had this funny feeling whenever I'd ask him for a blessing or to bless one of our children. I could tell he wasn't comfortable. And sometimes he'd be like, "Liz, I don't want to, and I'd just be like, he better straighten his tie." But when my shelf broke, I would say about 2013, I was pretty much done. And I went to him and I just said, "Babe, I can't do this. There's no way. There isn't any way to fit in we have 2 queer children. And I know the church from the foundation up. I have ancestors that walk the plains. And I know, I've read their diaries, their journals, and I was just starting to delve back into those things that I knew tidbits of as a child.
Okay.
Letters and books the prophets had written, Brigham Young's Journal of Discourses. A lot of this information is now on LDS.com. But when I went to my husband, he just went, "Oh, phew.
Thank you.
I haven't believed anything since I was 14.
Wow.
So
isn't that great? What a great man, though.
"Why did you do all of this?" And he said, "I love you. I would do anything to be with you."
Isn't that amazing?
And I just thought, holy cow, he's so different.
Yeah.
Than most men, you know.
And that's what Tricia's husband did as well. And you know what's funny?
Yeah.
My dad, when he was on hospice, my stepfather, when he was on hospice, he admitted that he served in the stake presidency with Dallin Oaks back in Naperville, Illinois. He served they went on 2 missions.
Cosmo the Cougar.
Yeah. I mean, he was a true blue, but in his defense, he was British, and British people don't like contention, and they will, So, yeah. But he did not have a testimony of the church. He did not believe that Joseph Smith was a prophet. He did probably the last 20 years of his life, he developed a testimony. But I think he just gave up. But he went along because his family. Well, he said, my family joined the church. What was I supposed to do? And so I thought, that is an amazing man that would give up smoking, give up drinking. He ate Kit Kat bars instead of smoking, and, gave up his wine. He was British. He grew up with wine. He didn't drink a lot. My family didn't drink a lot, but they had wine. They had champagne at special occasions. Yeah. Yes. But he gave that all up for my mom and his 2 stepkids. I mean, that's insane, but that says a lot.
I wonder how many people do that. Like, our church is relatively new, but think about people who grew up in the Catholic Church. I mean, there's probably a lot of people who do things like that, who, let me just take this on because that's what we do. So I don't know.
And I have friends whose husbands are not members, and they support them 100%. They don't go to church. They'll go to church if their kid's giving a talk in sacrament meeting. I've had some that have supported their wives in their callings, helped them along, come along for the ride. They're so supportive, but they have no intention of joining. I have so much respect for all of those scenarios,
I do too, because we each need to be able to do what makes us feel good at the time. I know better, so I'm doing different or better.
Yeah. Right. And I'm in the reverse situation. And thank heavens we had wonderful families like that to set the example, because now my husband goes to church and I stay home and I support him. I'm like, go, that's great. Sometimes I make fun of him, when he comes home. I'll have some sarcastic comment.
I would too.
Like sacrament meeting, I'll say, well, who told their travelogue today? Or I'll say something smart alecky like that, But anyway, so what's your favorite, Liz? What's your favorite historical? Who do you follow? What's been your biggest OMG? I had no idea.
Oh my gosh, which one can I pick? Okay, I'm going to go back to the first vision because that's kind of the basis of the church.
Okay.
I have a lot of them, but I think this one's important. And I think anyone that's a member of the church should go back and actually look up the handwritten first vision that's written in Joseph Smith's own penmanship.
Right.
Now, he couldn't spell, but he was brilliant.
Yes.
He was brilliant. He was a conniver.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And it has a copy. Most of the places where you can see a copy of his handwritten account of the first vision, it's got a copy below it that's typed, so you can kind of compare and make sure you're reading what's been translated.
Yeah.
But anyways, I believe there's 9 different accounts.
Wow.
Written differently, but the first time he penned it, he describes how he only saw one being, not 2, one.
Right.
And I had a cousin. We grew up with our cousins like brothers and sisters.
Yes.
In a small town.
Yes.
And in fact, we still live in southern Utah together. Until I had this breakaway from the church, we did everything together.
Oh.
But he had said to me, he was saying, oh, our church is just like every other church. I have a huge problem with the rapists and the sex abusers in our church, and Utah statistics are proven how awful this is in our state. And we were having this discussion, and they're just like doing that commonality of, oh, it's everywhere. And I said, well, then what makes Mormonism so important?
Right.
Why do I have to be a Mormon then?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I guess it comes down to if you believe in the first vision or not. And I said, which one?
Yeah.
Seriously.
I kind of like that first one where there was a Trinity, like all the other, some of the other Christian, Methodists. Like I said, he was very Methodist,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then I think from there, things just expanded. The Kinderhook plates blew me away.
Yeah.
I had never heard of the Kinderhook plates. And then, in my mind, that ties into the salamander letter hoax as a modern day Kinderhook type.
Right. Yeah, where there was no discernment. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then the facsimiles in the Pearl of Great, or the book of
Abraham.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm a little rusty with my more.
No, but and I think that's the thing is, especially in this day and age where we have so much information available, and it's not that we have so much information available in historical truths about the LDS Church. We also have a lot of historical information about our own American government, how things came about. And so when you start putting those two things together and you start realizing that there's no difference, that it's men seeking power, it's men, trying to push other men down. If you guys want to, I was listening to, crud. Honestly, I need a scribe. I need someone walking behind me, writing everything down so I can remember. But someone turned me on to RFM.
Put a stone in it and you'll be fine.
Oh, let me go get my stone. What was I thinking? Dang it, I actually have one. I'll go get it. Yeah. I thank you for reminding me, because yes, I have that stone.
RFM.
Yeah, I was RFM. Somebody said go and listen to RFM's. I think it was 2017. It's one of his older podcasts. And he talks about the succession of Brigham Young after Joseph Smith. And Orson Pratt, they should rip down the statue and name it Orson Pratt University. This man was brilliant, and he fought against Brigham Young on so many different things. But if you listen to this succession and how Brigham Young wormed his way into becoming the next prophet, when Orson Pratt was actually in line to be the next prophet. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Renee.
No.
There was 7 months, I believe, of where James Strang.
Yeah, he was in line too. Yeah.
Lead of the church, but with Mormonism, they leave that completely out.
And Sidney Rigdon was the next in line. And the way Joseph Smith had set it up, Sidney Rigdon actually should have been the one that was the succession plan. And then Strang was right up there too. And then they kicked him out. Cowdery was gone long ago because he had just had enough. And, but Brigham Young, came back. He went out to Utah, then he came back to winter quarters. And then he was like, guys, I got a great idea. This is how I think we should restructure everything. And there were 5 apostles that were like, no, that's not. But it took him 3 years to convince them. And he finally convinced them that the apostles should be the ones in, and there should be. And then the way they had it set up, they had it set up where it was for your age. And so Orson Pratt was next in line. Mm-hmm. But John Taylor Orson Pratt left the church for a small time when Joseph Smith tried to seduce his wife while he was on a mission. And when he came back, he was so distraught, he left the church for a few, I don't remember how many years or months, but because he had not been, consecutively in the church as long, Brigham Young changed. Well, we're going to restructure. Now your seniority is depending on how long you've been a member of the church. So Orson Pratt fell back down and John Taylor was next in line. And so it's like, what a political brouhaha.
Yeah.
And that is a perfect example of how they teach things that they want us to hear. Because just like what you guys were saying was, I grew up in the church. I had people on the planes, like all of those things. And I always understood that it was a quick succession. Like Joseph Smith died, and the next couple of weeks, that whole thing happened, and Brigham Young did his speech, and everybody saw Joseph Smith speaking up in front of them, and boom, he was in.
Yes. Yeah.
We all know that's been disputed and disproven though too, right?
Yep. I honestly, if I asked my husband right now, former bishop, stake president member, do you believe that Brigham Young gave, when he was giving a speech at conference, that his face took on the mantle of Joseph Smith? He would go, yeah, that's what happened. If I said, did you know that your great whatever great Orson Hyde is in my husband's line?
Okay.
He claimed to have seen this vision of Joseph Smith. He wasn't even in Utah. He was like 10 years later, he wrote down, oh yeah, I was there. It was great.
There's so much of that goes on. All these stories are just flying through my head. Like the 8 witnesses, the 11 witnesses.
In the same handwriting, all seem to belong to everybody else. I know. But when you tell people that, but here's the scary part, you guys. It all ties, like I was listening to a historical thing about nationalism and fascism and all of this kind of stuff. This is what leaving the church has, like I said, turned me into a crazy, where now I'm listening to all kinds of historical stuff. And I'm like, what? Anyway, but they were just saying how, this was a great one. One drop. This was in when Hitler was trying to formulate the whole Nazi system. One drop of Jewish blood would get you exempt from, you're not a German. One drop. I'm like, where have I heard that before? One drop. Oh yeah. So it's just, there's such a correlation between political power, whatever kind of power, call it whatever it is, patriarchal power. When there's money and power involved, nobody's talking for God. That's all I have to say, So, yeah. So Tricia, tell Liz, because Liz, wouldn't you say then that when your children came out, how old were your children when they came out to you?
My oldest son had waited till he was 22 to be worthy to go on a mission.
Okay.
So he was approaching 25.
So he did serve a mission?
He did. He went to the Congo in Africa. And let me just tell the world, if your child goes to a place where there's not food for your child either.
Yeah. If the people who live there are not eating, your kid's not eating as well.
Yeah. No pie appeared. No manna was found on the ground.
Wow. Did he come home with any parasites or anything like that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
Has he seen the Book of Mormon play?
I don't know if he has or not. I have.
Yeah.
I honestly cried through the whole thing because while they're mocking it, it's true.
I was going to say, because your son had been there.
Yeah. And my son didn't go in. Those were very arrogant missionaries in the play.
Yeah.
My son had never had that type of personality. But I cried through a lot of it. I could see the humor in it. Sorry, I just have to interject this. I was like, the frog dance. Why frogs? Like, why
I know.
You know where that comes from?
No.
Joseph Smith. I don't know if he recorded it or one of his colleagues. Tricia, are you?
I do. I know exactly where you're going. Keep going.
Okay,
yes.
Help me out if I get something askew. Okay, so the first time Joseph went to retrieve the golden plate.
Yes.
He was hit in the side of the head.
That's right.
By a white creature that he described that looked like a frog.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's right.
I'm certain that's where that came from.
I would think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I forgot that. Yeah.
And don't you think that's where Mark Hoffman came up with the salamander and like kind of what?
Yeah, because it sounded real.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this could be real because a frog, or it could have been a salamander.
Yeah. Because didn't Joseph Smith even say that he thought that the frog was like a spirit of some sort, like a guardian of some sort?
Yeah, there's a spiritual connotation to salamanders, and so there was a little bit of slippage, like kind of like what you were talking about with the first vision. Was it just God? Was it God and Jesus? Was it Nephi? Was it Moroni?
Was it a frog? Was it a salamander?
So there's a lot of depends on what
Was Moroni hunkered down and looked like a frog for some reason? I don't know.
Yeah. There's so many things for these brilliant people that have these amazing minds. They'll start to kind of go down that rabbit hole like we are, and they'll start putting two and two together, saying, well, now if Moroni was resurrected, but he didn't have a body because he wasn't resurrected because it was after the first resurrection. So did he carry the plates back to, I don't think, so there's so many of that where you start going, oh yeah, I didn't think about that.
No, I figured it out. I think it's like on the Disney, the Sword in the Stone, where the wizard can like put all the stuff in the little bag.
Oh, okay.
I think it's like
Mary
that.
Poppins.
Yes.
But Mary Poppins doesn't count because she's a woman. I'm so sorry.
Right. So the wizard works because he's a man. So that's fine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that's interesting. So how many children do you have, Liz?
I have 8.
Oh, holy moly.
You did the Mormon thing. Good job.
You get the award, girlfriend.
Ladies, when your patriarchal blessing that you get when you're 16 says, the blah, 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 Liz, the most important thing for you to do is to get married and raise a family.
Yeah.
What are you going to do when you're TBM?
That's what you do. Yeah.
And well, you know what's that's so true. And I remember sitting there as a 14-year-old getting my patriarchal blessing. He could have said anything. He could have said, whatever. I was sat there. I just remember going, tell me I'm going to have children. Tell me I'm going to have children. Tell me I'm going to have children. That's all I wanted was babies. I just wanted babies, And so that's amazing. Now, okay, so where of those 8 children, where are your 2 LGBTQ, AL, MNOP?
Okay, so our oldest son is the one that served in the Congo.
Okay, he came out after he came home.
Yes, I believe he had already discussed it, at least with his mission president, because he did. I believe he did some conversion therapy in the Congo. He was zone leader, 80 or 90% of his mission. I forget. It's interesting to me that, anyway, they used his leadership skills and his personality, but, they flagged his membership. And that, when I learned about the flagging of membership,
right,
it really bothered me because at that time they weren't flagging predators, pedophiles, child hunters.
Well,
and they're flagging my good son.
Yeah. Tell anybody that's listening that doesn't understand that or even know that, tell them a little bit about what they're doing, what that is. Okay,
so I think this is completely Nazi. I do think the church has adapted some
the star.
Nazi,
yeah.
And so anyone that is found to admit or engage of any type of queer or gay, they lump it all into one big your membership your membership is flagged, and you can never work with a youth, teach primary, which is really sad because some of the very best people.
Do you guys follow Mr. Greg on TikTok?
Oh, I love Mr. Greg.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, you have to find him.
I will.
He is hilarious, and he's a teacher. He teaches like elementary school, and every day he posts about something the kids will say to him. and they'll say like, Mr. Greg, did you know you're going bald? And he'll be like, thank you very much. I do know that, and he's just hilarious.
He's so cute. Oh, he's awesome. Yes.
Yeah. But
what he says, I digreg.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
he's
then
hilarious.
Our other queer child is using they, them pronouns for the last 2 years. And they are number 6 of 8.
Okay. So, and how do the other kids? Are the other kids accepting? Siblings?
Oh, yeah.
All good?
That's one thing I've been grateful for, because I thought when my kids were little, I thought I was this perfect little Mormon mother, and I busted my hump for the church and my family. And at this stage in life, I'm 52. I'm so grateful to no longer be there, because I'm burned out. I am so burned out.
Right. Right.
But I think
with
all
8
of
kids.
our children, having my parents being fairly liberal, like go to church if you want, but you don't have to.
Okay.
Those of us that stayed home had to clean the house and prepare dinner for those that went.
Okay.
Fair.
That's a way better parenting skill. Yeah.
And
you can stay home. Just make sure the yard's done and the garage is cleaned out. And I'll be at church in 5 seconds.
Right.
Put that down, ladies. Yeah. And
so we raised our children very liberal with the church, and we encouraged our, if our children brought a non-member to church, then we would go as a family to their church.
And explore. That's amazing.
Yeah. So we were very open-minded. My kids were not the popular kids per se at Snow Canyon High.
Right.
But my kids had more friends than anyone, because the indigenous kids came to my house. The Latinos came to my house.
Yes.
The, poverty-stricken kids. We related well with my son, I'm not trying to brag. I'm just trying to say that when you're an average and teach your children to love other people, other cultures, different financial situations.
Yeah.
No one could fit. They couldn't even fit inside the church at my son's farewell or homecoming.
Aww.
We weren't some rich family that had donated tons of money to the community or the sports.
Right.
We were average in every way.
Yeah.
And yet, and I just, and upon his return, and anytime we've had we try to do small family weddings of about 80 people. And every time we've had a wedding, it's just humongous. And it's not planned that way, but people love us. And I'm glad. And I love them back. And there's always been extras coming to support us. And I'm grateful. There's been times I've had to ask.
Yeah. It's a sad situation. I grew up in Illinois. So, and my family, like I said, we grew up Methodist but I grew up in a pretty diverse high school. And then my parents moved me out to Washington State my senior year. And it was pretty much a small town, all white, very backwards school that I got moved into. But if you think that I feel badly. I understand as a parent wanting your kids to be in a safe environment. And so the idea of moving out to Utah where there's not going to be a huge drinking culture. There is.
That's
drinking,
what they say drugs from the pulpit.
Everybody
believes it, but our statistics prove differently.
So let me tell you, even at BYU, you can find your tribe. Whatever it is you want to do, whoever it is you want to find, there's a tribe and you will find them, And, but if you can move to a community where you are rare as LDS or Mormon, your kids are going to benefit so much more. It's just, not to be, like you said, there's just that cultural bubble that is, it's scary because, like you say, when they go on missions, sometimes their eyes are open for the first time when they actually see poverty, real poverty, or where they see discrimination, or they see, pockets of people that are culturally somehow forced to live in a situation. Their eyes are just they're like, what? I had no idea this was going on. So yeah, I'm glad our kids were raised in a more diverse environment for sure. So, and Trish, you guys, Trisha's husband was in the military, so you were all over the world.
Yeah. Well, we didn't go all over the world, but we did go around the country. My husband got to go around the world, but but yeah, I had the same experience. I was really grateful that my kids were raised in places that were not LDS saturated. We still had big communities of LDS because the LDS and the military do overlap quite a bit.
That's true.
But we also had a ton of people, like especially when we lived on base, that were not LDS and from different cultures and backgrounds. And, we had people next door to us who were from Japan and, all of these things. And I'm really grateful for that. I think it just changed the way that they think about the world.
Right.
And I was raised in Pocatello, Idaho, in white Idaho. And so I did not have that. And moving away from that area opened my eyes. And to the point that, I still see friends like on Facebook that I grew up with from high school and such, and I can see they're exactly the same as they were in high school, and I am not exactly the same.
I know. I can totally relate to that.
Yeah. Where did you grow up, Liz?
I grew up in a very small, all white, pretty much Mormon community in northeastern Utah by the name of Hannah.
Oh,
that was also my temple name.
Oh, that's hilarious.
You just told us all.
What day was that? What year? I know. Yeah.
Yeah, Temple Oracle.
So yeah. It's so funny. So what do you think?
Oh, I have to ask, Liz. Yeah, I have to ask. So I'm saying that, you felt that your kids were always so accepted and had so many friends. So what happened when they came out to the community? How were they accepted or not?
Funny thing is, most of the family accepted, and everyone said they did. I now have some siblings I don't speak to. And cousins. In fact, the cousins that I'm talking about that all through grade school, high school, moved to St. George to go to Dixie College together. We were raising our children with their cousins the way we had been raised.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But after my children came out, they let me know that their cousins didn't love them. And they just didn't want to upset me or hurt my feelings. But things were different unless, the parents were around. And then there was a show put on. So yeah, that one was almost harder to lose than my siblings. Because we were the same age and had children the same ages and together every weekend and lots of intertwining. And they're good people. Just there's certain things that that hardcore Mormon mentality isn't going to allow.
Yep. Well, and you know what? And Trish, tell me if I said this already, because I don't want to repeat stuff that I've already had on this podcast. But and the opposite to that, I had the same thing, Liz. I grew up, I'm the only girl. There's only 3 of us. I have 2 brothers. And but I had tons of cousins. My mom had, there were 5 girls. So how the girls in the family, there were 8 kids all together. There were 5 girls. So the girls all got together, and every year, Father's Day, there was a picnic at this park, and they celebrated anybody who was graduating from high school that year, and a combination graduation and Father's Day every year. And then my mom joined the church, and then my mom would not shut up. and she was determined to convert her whole entire family. And it broke our family apart. It stopped. The year my brother graduated from high school, the annual picnic stopped because my mother would not shut up. And they kept saying, look, we're happy that you're happy. Please don't talk about your religion. We don't want to hear about your religion. We just want to have a picnic. And because she wouldn't stop, and I lost the only cousins I had left after that. She converted her oldest sister. And what's funny was her oldest sister, the oldest of the entire 8 kids, had been a Mormon all her life, and nobody cared because she didn't try to shove it down anybody's throat. But then when my mom joined, she got the second girl to join, and then the 2 of them. So I still had a relationship with those 2 cousins, but that was it. But now that I've left the church, I don't have a relationship with them either. So it's so funny. You're either in and you're excluded by this group, or you're out and you're excluded by that group. So,
I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
It gets so painful. There was a time, maybe 3 years after I had gotten myself out, probably not thoroughly out, but out, I had taken off my garments and whatever. There was a time where like sometimes my mind would be like, just go back, go lie with them, go lie and
just keep peace
to keep the tribe together. Like
yes.
But then, that was a time where I had joined Mama Dragons, and John Dehlin had started to come out, and Jeremy
Reynolds,
had come out with the letter, and it was really easy.
Okay, just to clarify, when you say John Dehlin came out, what she meant was Mormon stories.
Yeah,
so let's clarify that.
Yeah,
John's going to be like
and then Sam Young played a huge part for me, and then for me, I started to feel like I was searching for a church. And so once I got the support and kind of my own foundation, instead of relying on the church's foundation or somebody else's, I found my own. Yeah. And once I stood on my own foundation, I didn't need to be a Mama Dragon. I didn't need to, I didn't need to be engrossed with different. And I think these groups and people that are speaking up, telling their stories, I love it. It's fabulous. It helped me. But now I want to just be myself.
Live your life.
And I
I love that. And Tricia, I keep rolling myself out of my camera because I got this there. I'm just swiveling around. Yeah. So Tricia, I don't know if we talked about this last time we talked. When you first left the church, did you also think that you needed to find another religion?
We didn't talk about that before. Yes and no. So I did feel like I needed a spiritual something, spiritual guideline. And I do think because I ended up leaving the church kind of during the pandemic and everything, it was hard because I couldn't go to other churches or anything.
Right.
But I was pretty much out of Christianity, like pretty quickly. Like I'm like, if Mormon isn't true, neither is Christianity. Like it's all the same.
Yes.
But I was really interested in finding like spirituality in different ways. Like, maybe Buddhism, and not necessarily like believing it, but like feeling it, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Tricia, I feel like and maybe this is what you're explaining, is I take what feels good and I try to live by it or add it into my spirituality. But I don't need to belong. I don't need a label. Right. But I like to take the goods from anything that comes towards me that has goodness.
And you mean that little thing about I believe in all things that are good, benevolent, of good spirit? You mean that thing where they say to find good in all, that little article of faith that talks about finding good in all things?
Well, yes. And I think that like I have a cousin that's pagan, and I thought,
Yeah.
And I ordered some books and she sent me some things. Her husband was, they're divorced now, but he was the leader of the largest pagan group in the East. They live in Wisconsin. And I read some books and my gosh, it's really, really similar to indigenous culture. And they really just believe, I'd hear the word pagan as a Mormon and I'd be like, devil worshiper. But really,
don't you love the pentagram on the temples? And it's like, oh yeah, Christmas. You mean that solar eclipse thing?
Yeah, everything's stolen.
It's all pagan. We're all
everything
pagan.
Goes back to the
all
Druids
the rituals
or the indigenous people where, and they took, I don't know, and there's Joseph and his mother, his family. They were, if you want to dive into it, they were practicing black magic.
Oh, absolutely. We're doing circles of salt and goats.
Well, that brings us back to the frog, right? Because that was the familiar that was coming to help them.
Right. The talisman. Yeah. The whole bit.
And those things are so, when they were he was doing readings for people before his father was a patriarch. And yet,
get my rose crystal out just
yet, we're not supposed to touch tarot cards or go seek mediums, or because he's the only one that had any power. And it's like,
ooh, that sounds familiar too. Didn't we just have a talk about that we have to stay in our lane?
Yes. Isn't that funny? When he mentioned Hiram Page, I'm like, oh, you forgot the other 90% of that story. You didn't tell the whole story of the rock.
When have they ever at the pulpit told the whole story?
Yeah.
Never.
And sisters, I'm telling you, that's what I want this podcast to be about. It's like, look, we only have an hour. We don't have time to delve through, the 50,000 hours of historical truths that you're going to have to figure out for yourself. But if we talk to you about Hiram Page and the seer stone and the revelations, and that you find out, oh yeah, no, there's more to that story. That's all we're going to say. Now it's your job to find out what the rest of that story is. And that's all we're saying is there is more. It's like that old Huntley Brinkley. There's more to this story. There's it's not just
the rest of the story.
Yeah. You guys keep talking. I have to go get you something. I have to show you something. So keep talking.
Oh, she's going to go get something.
She's going to go get her.
Hey, Liz, I really want to know. I know, she's so funny. So I really want to know, one of the things that got me was the Book of Abraham. Like that was a big thing for me. So when did you learn about that, and how did that affect you?
It's been, I would say 10 years ago that I started questioning it. But to fully come around to discounting it, the Smithsonian is it's my favorite television station. I have a high regard for the Smithsonian. And when they completely discounted the Book of Mormon, I'm like, okay, I've got to get in here and do my own research. And I didn't just go to the Smithsonian. I wanted, my own. Liz is building her own foundation here. I want my own. So there's so many different ways to disprove those, their funerary texts. There's something called the Book of Breathing that's involved with that. And I had always, there's stories in the Bible that you're always like, what? Like Solomon, even when I was a little kid, Solomon cutting the baby in half, or, offering. I'm like, what? A 2-year-old wouldn't want. He's not brilliant. Nobody, and like we learned the rest of the stories at home with our parents, like, Lot and his daughters and Noah. And I always had problems like with Hagar and Ishmael being thrown out in the wilderness, and Boaz and Ruth was, I mean, there's just so much, stuff. And then, to get these facsimiles and go, and there's scientists, there's, credible people that have studied Hebrew and Egyptian, and it has nothing, and then to find out the Hebrew Bible is original, and then how many times the Bible's been changed and added to and detracted from, and it all just came together for me. Right now I'm trying to, I'm not trying to learn cuneiform, or I don't know how to pronounce that word. The first, but I have a lot of interest in that part of the world right now, and I never have before.
What do you think? What do you think? If we, okay, I wanted to show this to you. One of the problems that people have is, okay, I don't know if this is probably going to be backwards. I don't know if you can see it. It says, "Where will you go?" One of the problems that I hear people say, they have a hard time with the church. They're like you say, they're physically in, they're mentally out, and the biggest thing that keeps them in is okay, so this is my candle. This is my Where Will You Go candle. This is from a company called Exmo Candles, the Exmo Candle Company. Get online. They have all different fragrances, and they have the cute little, it's like lighting outer darkness together. That's what but one of the things that keeps people in the church is the community.
Yes.
And when we talked about, well, do we find another Christian religion to go to? What do we do? I mean, like you guys, I've been going to church for 50 years, 55 years. Every Sunday, you get up, you get dressed. It's a habit. I don't know what to do with myself on Sunday mornings. I get up and I'm like, well, that was my day to get dressed up. Now what am I going to do? I don't even have any place to wear a dress anymore.
Well, like, we went to the lake. We bought a boat and 2 sets of wave runners, and we started going to the lake.
Okay.
And for me, because I was one of those, so I would defend anything Mormon, anything. Yeah. Even if I knew or had glimpses of untruths, I would defend it hardcore. Yeah. And I feel like we're even kind of taught to battle with different belief systems.
Oh, yeah.
And letting go of all of those things and going, I'll do what I want. I'll do whatever I want. I have an extra Saturday.
Yeah.
And I'm going to learn and try to help other people. We're sick, just like that Elissa Wall that left the FLDS.
Oh, yeah.
Any of those, we are as tightly wound as any polygamist group. It's the same thing. I'm doing things to unwind, and I'm free, and my mind is free, and my thoughts are free.
Are all 8 of your children out as well?
Yes.
Okay, so that makes,
It's kind of interesting because I have a grandson that's turning 14 today.
Oh.
And he wanted to be baptized a few years ago when he turned 10.
Yeah.
And so we're like, I was a little uncomfortable with the idea, but I didn't want to take his agency away.
No, yeah.
And so he was baptized, and the sister missionaries were taking him to church. And it wasn't even 2 months into it. And he came home and said something, that he had questions for the sister missionaries because he had heard something about gay at church.
Oh.
And he told the sister missionaries at 10 years old, I love my uncle. And this isn't going to come in the way. I mean, in his little 10-year-old.
Right.
And he, and he got his little scriptures from his great grandparents with his name on them and all those.
Oh.
But he was just like, I don't want to go anymore. It didn't feel good. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And that's so sad because there is, and I know Brittany's talked a lot about this too, there is a lot of thing that is so good about rituals. Why do we humans have rituals? Because it is a part of our humanness. The rituals are important. And when and in the church, when you have such a big deal made, they announce it over the pulpit and everybody stands up and raises their hand and welcomes you in, and they've got the pictures and any kid that's been in that environment, of course they want that. That's like saying we're going to be Jehovah's Witnesses and not celebrate your birthday anymore. I mean, that's a hard thing to give up, you know?
It is, but you know, it's so, there's so much time. I have so much more time to give to my family.
Right.
The cookies I bake, my family. The food I make, my family. There you are.
Yeah.
My thing was loading and loading, so I reset it. It should be fine.
Oh, good job. And there's so many things that we do. The women are the worker bees in the church, in my opinion.
Right. That's right.
We set up, we plan for months, we spend our money, we are there for setup, we're there for the takedown. And I was very dedicated. I'm even thinking about it, I get so exhausted about.
So I just want to say my thoughts about why the patriarchy has to like keep us down, because they know that if we were treated equally, we'd take over.
Absolutely. Because we're the descendants of Catherine the Great and Elizabeth, First Elizabeth, you know? We are.
No, that's so true. Well, ladies, one more thing, because I think this is very important, is you know, women need other women. And I do believe that is also something that keeps women, especially in the church, they're best friends. These women that they've gone through scouting, they've gone through Young Women's, they went to camp together. You know, this person was the cook, this person was the, you know, and they've got this group of women that are so important to their lives, and they're not willing to give that up. And I get it. I get that. How have you two replaced that?
Go ahead, Trish.
Well, for me, I think I was already pretty lucky. I already had a lot of friends and supports outside of the church, just because mostly my kids did a lot of activities outside of the church, sports and things like that. And so we already kind of had other support systems. There were other times in my life where that would not have been true, where, you know, but I also happened to have a friend in the church who was going through the same thing as me at the same time. And so the two of us together kind of supported each other through it. And honestly, I think because I work outside the home has helped a lot.
Oh, you've got that work is so important for things like that. Well, you're absolutely right. And I do think, as you say, if you live outside of the bubble, my husband and I have always had friends outside of the church because our kids were involved in sports. And so you'd travel with the baseball team or go to the cheerleading competition with all the other parents that were not members, you know, of the church. And we happen to live in a community now that there are no LDS in the entire community. There was one family, but they actually moved out. And so we had a fabulous Halloween party last night. I had a wonderful hosted bar that had not alcoholic drinks for people. Alcohol if people wanted it. Everyone in the community is so kind. I know that if I needed something, I could put out one text and I would have at least 36 people right here that would be at my doorstep. And it's so important for people to understand that there is life outside of the church, that there are good Christian. I have a lady down the street that has a Bible study every week. She's so lovely. Book clubs going on all over the place, pickleball like crazy, going out to lunch, hiking. They're out there. There's wonderful, good people out there. And I really want to encourage people that, like anything else, you know, if it sounds like the three of us we're willing to go, I got the parachute, I'm out of here. And we're leaping off the edge of the cliff. There are other people that need to be let down slowly. And that's great. You find whatever, but I'm telling you, there are systems out there that will help you through this. And I'm really hoping that our voices I have, you guys, here's my seer stone. I'm going to read right now. It says, there is hope. No, but there are women out there. We're not all getting drunk. We're not all doing pole dancing, although I have heard that's fabulous exercise.
Sounds fun to me.
Yeah.
I have a cousin that's the champion for the United States 3 years.
Pole dancer?
Because it's in an exercise. I mean,
Yes.
you can see this girl's buns.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fabulous, I can't hang upside down. I'm not climbing. I tried to pull
about
myself
100 pounds to lose first.
So there.
Okay, but Liz did not get to share her, like her group outside of the church.
Well, yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe you were in Outer Limits when we were talking about
maybe.
That. Yeah.
Right?
I
will say this. There's people that loved me, that were in church with me, that have stayed with me. And we don't interfere with the belief systems. However, if they ask me a question, they're getting an answer. Okay. And I told everyone that wants to stay in my circle, that's about a fourth of the size that it used to be.
Yeah.
If you're going to bear your testimony, you're going to hear mine.
Yeah.
And I force my space. Yeah. I don't think it's because there's this air about Mormons where they think they're being respectful and they think they're allowing you to be who you are. Mm. And they're not. They are so cultured. It may not even be their fault, but I call people out on it. And I'm just like, you don't get to do that unless you're going to give me my space too. Mm-hmm.
And you know what's funny? I am also blessed with some people the thing is we moved away. So a lot of our friends that we'd had in our lives for years, but we kind of moved it. I don't know if you guys have ever done this. We moved, and then all of the people that we hung out with, that we went out on dates with on Friday night, they moved. So it's like the entire ward changed. We're almost like, gosh, I'm glad we moved when we did, because these guys are in Utah now, and these guys actually moved to Arizona, and these guys are, as soon as their last kid graduates, they're going to be out of there too. So as you age, because I'm at least 10 something years older than you guys, your whole community changes anyway, so that's a whole nother season of life that you have to adapt to. So that makes it hard, but you will find your tribe. You will find your safe space to land. And I don't want people to live in a hurtful environment because they think there's no place. They think that there's no place to go. Where will you go? Like you say, you will go to the lake. You will go. I've been to a couple other churches. I tried on a couple other churches, but Trish, I was like you, and Liz, I was like you too. It's like, first thing I say is, how do you feel about women in the ministry? Oh, we don't allow that. I'm like, I'm out of here. How do you feel about, the homosexual thing? Oh no, we don't accept that. I'm out of here. So I haven't been able to find a Christian religion that is really any better than the LDS. They just don't have garments. And so they drink coffee, wine, and they don't wear garments. But other than that, it's the exact same religion stuff.
One of my children, our two youngest are adopted. And his biological grandfather, who we stayed in touch with, recently passed away. Oh. And we went to my two sons were pallbearers at his funeral. Oh. And when we got in the car, the oldest of the two, he said, "Mom, what was that costume my grandpa was wearing?"
Oh, yes. You know what? I thought about that when my aunt died, because I'm like, wait a minute. My kids went through the temple. I wasn't allowed to talk or show them or anything like that. And now this lady's out on freaking display for the whole world to see. What's up with that? Yeah.
Yep.
That's so funny. Well, ladies, you guys have been amazing. This has been so much fun. I wish we were at a table somewhere where we could order more appetizers and
me too.
Going. So, Liz, I hope you and your mom, I hope she does well this week, and I hope that they can get in there and take out the lump and she'll be fine. It'll, Trish, what have you got going on this week?
Teaching. That's what I do.
When does, let's see, what is this? you guys are out. And then are you guys a September to June schedule?
We are. Well, yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got a few more months, and fall is crazy. Fall is crazy.
So excited. So my kids are coming home for Thanksgiving. So I'll have all of my kids home and their significant other happening. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I love Thanksgiving. Now that I'm not cooking anymore, I used to hate Thanksgiving, but now that I'm not cooking, now my kids are older. So it's kind of like, we'll make the pies, we'll make the turkey. I'm like, let mama just sit back in that old family room like all those guys did all those years, you know?
Yes.
So watch the football.
I'm with you, Renee.
Yeah. So anyway, you guys have a great week, and we will do this again.
Yeah, that's great.
Do something this week to be visible. That's all I ask.
Love it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Bye.